Look at the last 2.5 years with our supply chain globally. It hasn't gone real well. Automakers can't make enough cars, medications took a while. That's a direct quote, and honestly, it hits the nail right on the head, doesn't it? It highlights this stark reality we've literally all been living through lately. When the systems that bring raw materials to the factory floor just suddenly break down, the whole world feels it. We're talking empty shelves, cars sitting half-finished on lots, missing medications. It's real-world chaos, and it reveals just how incredibly fragile global business can actually be. So, how do companies design, manage, and hopefully protect these massive invisible systems? Well, let's dive into it.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to make some sense of all this supply chain chaos by revisiting Michael Porter's famous value chain. But we're going to look at it through the lens of these recent global crises. Specifically, we're zoning in on the absolute foundation of that chain, a crucial area called inbound logistics. Because as we've all seen firsthand, if you don't get the very beginning right, the rest of the business just completely grinds to a halt.
So, here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start by unpacking the value chain itself, then define the primary activities, do a real deep dive into inbound logistics, and finally, look at some real-world logistics strategies. Let's get moving.
Unpacking the value chain, the anatomy of a business. To understand how a massive breakdown happens in the first place, we really need a blueprint of how a company actually creates value and ultimately profit.
Think about Porter's framework like this. It takes literally every single thing a firm does. I mean everything, from hiring employees to sweeping the floors to actually building the product, and organizes it into one giant cohesive arrow pointing straight toward profit margin. It's broken down into two broad categories: support activities across the top and primary activities along the bottom. The whole core idea here is that value gets added step by step as you move from left to right.
Now, the absolutely crucial thing to grasp is the hard line between these two areas. On one side, you have support activities. Think of these as the brain and the nervous system quietly running things in the background, stuff like accounting, HR, tech development, procurement. They're there to make things efficient. But on the other side, that's where you find the primary activities. This is the physical muscle of the whole operation. It's the creation, the sale, the delivery, the customer service. This is where the actual physical heavy lifting of the product takes place.
Defining primary activities, the relay race. Let's zoom in specifically on those primary activities.
Okay, so if primary activities are the physical engine of the company, I actually like to picture them as a highly coordinated relay race. First up, runner one is inbound logistics. They pass the baton to operations to build the thing. Then outbound logistics distributes it. Marketing and sales sells it, and finally, service maintains it. Every single step is strictly sequential. If just one runner trips, boom, the race is over.
Deep dive. Inbound logistics. The first domino. Let's put the magnifying glass entirely on that very first runner.
Let's get a clear definition here. Inbound logistics refers to receiving, storing, and controlling the inventory of raw materials and parts before the product is manufactured. I really want to emphasize that word before. This right here is the very first domino. It's all about inputs. Because if this stage isn't managed perfectly, well, your world-class operations team has absolutely nothing to build. And your brilliant marketing team, yeah, they have zero to sell.
It takes some incredibly complex choreography to pull this off. We're talking non-stop material handling, massive warehousing, and precise vehicle scheduling, making sure freight arrives at the exact right time so the docks don't just completely bottleneck. And the inventory control is intense. Actually, get this. Fun fact, holding excess inventory can cost companies up to 20 to 30% of the inventory's total value every single year. That is a huge chunk of change. So it really is this massive, calculated dance long before a single product is ever put together.
Real-world logic strategies, from theory to practice. Okay, it's one thing to talk about business theory, but let's look at how mastering this actually builds a serious competitive advantage out in the real world. Take the sourcing journey of Starbucks, for example. They have deliberately chosen to exert extreme control over their inbound logistics. They aren't just flipping through a middleman's catalog to buy their coffee. No way. They deploy their own specially hired coffee buyers who literally travel the globe, going directly to plantations in Latin America, Africa, Asia, just to hand-select the absolute finest green unroasted beans. And once they source them, those beans are delivered straight into Starbucks' own strictly controlled storage facilities.
So why go through all that trouble? Because controlling inbound logistics creates premium value. By refusing to outsource that sourcing step, Starbucks absolutely guarantees uncompromising quality from the very first bean. It's not just about moving boxes on trucks. It's about brand protection. By securing these super high-quality inputs right at the start, they inherently add value to the final cup of coffee. And that is exactly what allows them to charge that premium price at the register. The value is quite literally built at step one.
Now flip the script and look at Walmart. They are playing a totally different game, one based on extreme cost leadership. Walmart is constantly tweaking its logistics to just squeeze out every single drop of inefficiency. One of their biggest game changers is something called cross-docking. Basically, goods arrive on inbound trucks, but instead of being unpacked and sitting on a warehouse shelf collecting dust, they are immediately moved across the dock and reloaded right onto outbound trucks. They bypass warehouse inventory almost entirely. Mastering that inbound flow is the secret sauce that allows Walmart to offer everyday low prices.
So we've seen how Starbucks uses it to lock in premium quality, and how Walmart uses it to drive extreme cost savings. But the fundamental truth is the exact same for every single company on Earth. And that brings us right back to where we started today, looking at global supply chains in total chaos. When we look at Michael Porter's value chain, sure, it's this elegant, logical sequence of value creation. But it demands a pretty provocative question. If your inbound logistics fail, if that very first runner drops the baton, if the trucks don't arrive, or if your raw materials are stuck at some port halfway across the world, does the rest of your brilliant value chain even matter? I'm gonna leave you to think about that one. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep an eye out for the invisible systems powering the products you use every single day.